I should have known something was off when my boss called me in that morning, his face twisted in that fake, apologetic grimace. But I never expected to walk into work and be fired for doing the right thing. It all started the night before. It was late, past midnight, and the diner where I worked was almost empty. A lone man sat at a booth in the back, shoulders slumped, staring at his coffee like it held all the answers to life's problems. He wore a cap pulled low over his face, but even then, something about him seemed familiar. I was finishing my shift when I noticed it, his wallet, left behind on the seat. Without thinking, I grabbed it and dashed outside. He was just unlocking his car when I called out, "Sir, you forgot this." He turned around, surprised. And that's when I froze. Even in the dim glow of the streetlights, I recognized him. Keanu Reeves. He blinked at me, as if trying to place who I was. Then, with the smallest, tired smile, he took the wallet. "You didn't even look inside." I frowned, confused. "Why would I?" He exhaled a breath, one that sounded almost relieved. "Thank you," he murmured, and for a split second, there was something in his eyes, sadness, gratitude, something deeper. Then he got in his car and drove off. I didn't think much of it. Just another night. Just another customer, but the next morning, everything changed. I barely had time to tie my apron before my manager, Tony, stormed out of the office. In my office. Now. I barely sat down before he slammed a paper on the desk. "You're done here, MIA." I blinked. "Wait, what? What did I do?" He sneered. "You ran out of the diner during your shift for some random customer. That's not how we do things here." It was literally 10 seconds. I just returned his wallet. "Doesn't matter," he cut me off. "We need staff who take their jobs seriously." I stared at him in shock. "I've been here for 3 years. I've never even been late." Tony just shrugged, already standing. "Take it up with someone who cares." And just like that, I was jobless. I walked out, my stomach in knots. Rent was due in a week. I had maybe $100 to my name. How was I going to survive? But as I sat in my tiny apartment later that day, my phone buzzed. A message from my best friend, Laner, MIA, turn on the news. Now. I grabbed the remote, flipped to the first channel, and my heart stopped. There he was. Keanu Reeves. In a live interview, there was this woman, he was saying, voice soft but clear. She didn't treat me like an actor. She didn't expect anything. She just helped me. That small act of kindness reminded me that there's still good in the world. I clamped my hand over my mouth. No. No way. But then Keanu turned to the camera, his eyes filled with something raw. "I don't know her name," he admitted. "But I want to find her. If she's watching this, I just want to say thank you. And if there's any way I can repay her kindness, I'll do whatever it takes." I nearly dropped the remote. My phone buzzed again. "Laner, MIA. He's talking about you," and that's when the panic set in. I had just lost my job. I had no money. No future, and now Keanu freaking Reeves was looking for me, but before I could even process what was happening, my phone started ringing. Unknown number. I hesitated. Answered. A deep, familiar voice spoke. "Is this MIA?" I nearly stopped breathing because on the other end of the line was Keanu Reeves himself. I stared at my phone like it had just burst into flames. Keanu Reeves was calling me. I hesitated, my heart pounding. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe I was dreaming. But my fingers moved before my brain could catch up, and I pressed accept. "Hello." My voice barely came out. "MIA." The voice was deep, familiar, gentle. It was him. I shot off my couch like it had electrocuted me. "Oh, why yeah, this is MIA." There was a small chuckle on the other end, but then his tone turned serious. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time. I wanted to say, Keanu, I just got fired, I'm broke, and now you're personally calling me. I have no idea what's happening. Instead, I choked out, no, not at all. He exhaled in relief. Good. I've been trying to find you. I saw what happened. You lost your job because of me, didn't you? His words hit me like a truck. He knew that I squeezed my eyes shut. It wasn't your fault. There was silence. Then, quietly, he asked, do you need help? That was the moment I felt it, the sheer insanity of my situation. The Keanu Reeves, John Wick himself, was offering to help me, and I panicked. No, I'm fine. I blurted. Totally fine. It's just a job. I'll find another one. No big deal. The words tumbled out so fast I wasn't even sure if they were English. Keanu didn't speak right away. When he did, his voice was soft. MIA, you don't have to pretend with me. I felt something tighten in my chest, but before I could respond, Keanu sighed. Look, I don't want to push. But I want to meet you. Properly. Can we talk? In person? I blinked. Like now. I'm in LA for a few more days. If you're comfortable, I'd love to take you to lunch. No pressure. Pressure. There was so much pressure I felt like I was going to explode, but my mouth worked faster than my brain. Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. Great. Do you know Joe's Cafe on 3rd? I nearly dropped the phone. Joe's Cafe was 3 blocks from my apartment. Yeah, I whispered, I'll meet you there at noon. And just like that, I had a lunch date with Keanu Reeves, the lunch that changed everything. At exactly 11:58 a.m., I was standing outside Joe's Cafe, hands shaking, stomach in knots. I had spent the morning spiraling. What was I supposed to say? Was he expecting me to cry? Was I supposed to act normal? How does one act normal around Keanu Reeves? But before I could have a full breakdown, a black sedan pulled up to the curb, and out stepped Keanu Reeves. He wasn't wearing a suit or sunglasses or anything flashy. Just jeans, a dark hoodie, and that same baseball cap from the diner. But even in the most casual outfit, he carried an air of quiet presence. He saw me and smiled. MIA. I could barely get out a hi before he opened the cafe door for me. Keanu Reeves held the door for me. Inside, we found a quiet booth. The moment we sat down, the waitress, an older woman named Carol, froze. Her eyes went wide. Oh my stars, she whispered. Why, Yuri? Keanu gave her a kind smile. Hi, Carol. She pressed a hand to her chest. I've been serving here for 15 years, and I've never, I need to bring you something special. She scurried away before we could protest. I stared after her. Does that happen a lot? Keanu shrugged. Sometimes. But I don't mind. For the first time, I noticed how tired he looked. Like he hadn't had a moment to just exist. The conversation started slow. He asked about my job, my plans, if I was okay. I tried to play it cool, but Keanu Reeves is like a human lie detector. When I told him I'd figure something out, he tilted his head. Do you have any ideas? I stirred my coffee. Not really. Keanu leaned forward. If you could do anything, what would it be? I hesitated. No one had ever asked me that before. I always wanted to work in publishing, I admitted. Books, editing, that kind of thing. His face lit up. That's amazing. What stopped you? I swallowed. Money. Connections. You know, real life. Keanu studied me for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. He slid it across the table. I picked it up and nearly choked. It was from a huge publishing company in LA. I know the CEO, he said casually. I can get you an interview. I almost passed out. Keanu, I can't just take this. You've already done too much. He smiled. MIA, you helped me when you didn't have to. Let me return the favor. I gripped the card so hard my fingers hurt. Thank you. Before he could respond, Carol returned with a slice of homemade pie. This one's on the house, she said, beaming. Keanu's eyes twinkled. You have no idea how much I love pie. And just like that, the heavy atmosphere lifted. We talked. We laughed. For the first time in weeks. I felt okay, but peace never lasts. After lunch, Keanu insisted on walking me home. Just to make sure you get there safe, he said with a playful wink, but as we turned onto my street, I noticed something strange. A black SUV was parked across from my apartment, and inside, a man in sunglasses, watching us. I slowed my steps. Keanu. His smile disappeared the moment he saw the SUV. His entire posture shifted, tense, alert. I barely had time to ask what was wrong before he grabbed my wrist. Come with me. Now. He pulled me into a nearby alley just as the SUV door opened, and that's when I heard the footsteps. Someone was following us. Keanu pressed his back against the wall, shielding me. Stay quiet. I held my breath. My heart hammered so loud I was sure they'd hear it. The footsteps grew closer, and then, a shadow loomed at the alley's entrance. I looked up, and my blood turned to ice, because the man standing there wasn't just some random stranger. It was Tony. My former boss, and he wasn't alone. Tony, my ex-boss, standing at the mouth of the alley. With two men, and none of them looked happy. Keanu shifted slightly, positioning himself between me and them. His whole posture had changed, his usual easygoing presence replaced by something sharp. Dangerous, Tony. I breathed, my stomach twisting. What the hell are you doing here? Tony smirked. I should be asking you that, MIA. But, his gaze flickered to Keanu. Guess I don't have to wonder how you got here. I frowned. What are you talking about? One of the men stepped forward, tall, broad, definitely not a waiter from the diner. He was built like someone who solved problems with his fists. You cost us a lot of money, sweetheart. My blood ran cold. What? Keanu's voice was quiet but firm. You should walk away. Tony let out a cold laugh. Oh yeah. And why's that? Keanu didn't move, but there was something in his expression, deadly calm. Because you don't want this fight. For a moment, no one spoke. The air was thick with tension, then Tony sneered. I know who you are, man. You think that scares me? Keanu tilted his head. It should. The two men moved first, everything happened so fast. One of them lunged. Keanu sidestepped effortlessly, grabbing the guy's wrist and twisting. Crack! The man screamed, stumbling back as Keanu shoved him into the alley wall. The second guy charged. Keanu dodged, smooth, almost lazy, before driving his elbow into the guy's stomach. The man doubled over, gasping for air. Tony froze. I pressed myself against the brick wall, heart pounding. Keanu turned to Tony, expression unreadable. You want to try? Tony's face twisted. His eyes darted between his groaning men and Keanu. I could practically hear the gears turning in his head. Then, like the coward he was, he backed away. This isn't over, he spat before disappearing down the street. The moment they were gone, my knees gave out. Keanu caught me before I hit the ground. MIA. His voice was gentle again. Are you okay? I gripped his arms, trying to steady myself. What the hell just happened? Keanu sighed. I was afraid of this. I stared at him. Afraid of what? He helped me stand. Come on, he said. We need to talk. Secrets uncovered. We walked in silence. Keanu didn't let go of my arm until we were inside a small, quiet coffee shop, one far from my neighborhood. He ordered 2 black coffees and led me to a secluded booth. I finally found my voice. Start talking. Keanu rubbed his face, looking tired. MIA, your ex-boss. He's into some bad things. I blinked. What? I didn't want to worry you, but after I heard you got fired, I looked into him. Keanu's jaw tightened. Turns out, the diner was a front. I felt like the ground had just vanished beneath me. A front. My voice cracked. Keanu nodded. Money laundering. Shady deals. The whole thing. And I think you accidentally got caught in the middle of it. I stared at him. But I didn't do anything. Keanu met my gaze. Exactly. That's the problem. I was shaking. Are you telling me I was working for criminals? Keanu exhaled. I'm saying you got fired because you did the right thing. And they don't like loose ends. It hit me all at once, the way Tony fired me so quickly, the SUV outside my apartment, Tony showing up with his goons. Oh my God, I whispered. Keanu leaned forward. MIA, listen to me. You can't go back there. You can't talk to Tony. You need to stay away. My hands clenched around my coffee cup. What do I do? Keanu hesitated. Then, carefully, he said, I can help you. I stared at him. Keanu, I can't let you, you can. His voice was firm. You helped me when you didn't have to. Now let me return the favor. I swallowed hard. How? Keanu tapped the business card still sitting on the table. That interview I offered. It's still yours. Take it. Get out of here. Start fresh. Tears burned my eyes. Keanu, I don't know how to thank you. His smile was soft. You don't have to. But just when I thought it was over, I felt like I could breathe again. For the first time since this nightmare started, there was hope. Keanu helped me flag down a cab. As I climbed in, he rested his hand on the open door. MIA. I looked up, his dark eyes searched mine. If anything feels off, anything at all, you call me. Promise? I nodded. I promise. He smiled. Good. And then, I went home, thinking the worst was over. I was so wrong, because when I stepped into my apartment, I saw the envelope, sitting on my kitchen counter. I hadn't put it there. My stomach twisted. Slowly, I picked it up. Opened it. Inside was a single note. You should have stayed fired. My breath caught. My hands trembled, and then I saw it, a shadow moving outside my window. Someone was watching me, and just like that, I realized this wasn't over, not even close. I wasn't alone, someone was outside my apartment. Watching me. My breath hitched as I stared at the shadow moving behind the thin curtains. Whoever they were, they wanted me to know they were there. I clutched the note in my shaking hands. You should have stayed fired. My body screamed at me to run, to get out, but my legs felt paralyzed. My apartment wasn't big. I had one door, one window, and someone was right outside. Then, my phone buzzed. Keanu. I snatched it up like a lifeline. Hello. MIA. His voice was sharp. Are you okay? I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, a loud knock, the door. I choked on my own breath. Keanu, someone's here. Silence. Then, his voice changed. Get out. Now. I barely had time to grab my coat before the door handle rattled. Whoever was outside was trying to get in. I bolted for the back, wrenching my fire escape window open. My hands fumbled as I climbed down, heart slamming against my ribs. I hit the ground and ran. The second my feet hit the pavement, my phone buzzed again. Keanu, where are you? His voice was tight. Focused. I don't know, I gasped, ducking into a narrow alley. I just ran. Good, he said. I'm coming to get you. Stay hidden. I pressed myself against the cold wall, forcing slow, quiet breaths. My mind raced. Who was at my apartment? How did they get in? And what the hell did they want from me? The escape. I don't know how long I stood there. It could have been minutes. It felt like hours. Then, headlights flickered at the alley's entrance. A sleek, black sedan pulled up. The window rolled down. Keanu, get in, he said. I didn't think. I just ran. The moment I shut the door, Keanu hit the gas, pulling away from the curb so fast I felt my stomach lurch. He looked at me, eyes scanning my face. Are you hurt? I shook my head. No. But someone was there. They left a note. Keanu's jaw tightened. What did it say? I swallowed hard. That I should have stayed fired. His knuckles went white against the steering wheel. I hesitated. Keanu, what the hell is going on? He exhaled sharply, staring at the road. I didn't want to scare you earlier, but I think you're in more danger than I thought. I rubbed my arms, trying to suppress the chill crawling up my spine. Because of Tony. Keanu nodded. I had a friend dig deeper. Turns out, Tony was laundering money for some very bad people. And when you got fired, they assumed you saw something. I felt my stomach twist. I didn't see anything. Keanu's voice softened. I know. But they don't. Silence stretched between us. Then, finally, I whispered, what do I do? Keanu took a breath. You stay with me. I blinked. What? You're not safe on your own, he said firmly. I have a house outside the city. No one knows about it. You can lay low there until we figure this out. My head was spinning. Keanu, I can't just, he glanced at me, his dark eyes serious. MIA. Please. And just like that. I realized I had no other choice. A safe place. Keanu's house was nothing like I expected. It wasn't some flashy Hollywood mansion. It was a quiet, secluded cabin tucked deep in the hills, surrounded by trees. Peaceful. Safe. I stepped inside, still shaken. Keanu set his keys down and turned to me. You can take the guest room. There's food in the kitchen. Showers down the hall. I nodded slowly. Thank you. He hesitated. I'll be in the living room if you need anything. I swallowed. Keanu, he looked at me. I searched his face. Why are you doing this? You barely know me. His expression softened. Because I know what it's like to lose everything. I felt my chest tighten. Before I could say anything, Keanu stepped away, giving me space. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that note. I wasn't safe, not yet, and I had no idea what would happen next. But what I didn't know, the danger was far from over, because back in the city, Tony was making one last call. To someone worse. I should have felt safe. Keanu's secluded cabin was miles away from the city, hidden deep in the hills. No one could find me here. No one should have been able to, but safety is an illusion. And I was about to learn that the hard way. The break-in it happened just past midnight. I had finally drifted off to sleep when, crack. A noise. Outside. My snapped open. The air felt wrong. I sat up, heart pounding. The cabin was silent, but something told me I wasn't alone. Then, another sound. A slow, deliberate creak, the front door. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Someone was inside. I slipped out of bed as quietly as I could, pressing myself against the wall. My pulse hammered, then footsteps. Slow. Controlled. Whoever was here, they knew how to move in the dark. My hands shook as I reached for my phone. Keanu was in the next room. If I could just, a floorboard creaked, the footsteps stopped. I held my breath, then, bang, the bedroom door burst open. A man stood there, dressed in black, face half hidden by a mask. Gun in hand. I didn't even have time to scream. The fight before the man could step forward, a shadow moved, and suddenly, Keanu was there. He struck fast, silent, efficient. 1 second, the intruder had the upper hand. The next, Keanu had disarmed him, twisting his wrist until the gun clattered to the floor. The man barely had time to react before Keanu landed a solid hit to his jaw. Crack, the guy stumbled back, dazed, but not out. Keanu grabbed my wrist. Run. I didn't hesitate. We ran, out the bedroom. Down the hall. Towards the back door, but we weren't alone. Another man emerged from the shadows, gun raised. My stomach dropped, time slowed, but before the man could pull the trigger, Keanu moved, faster than I thought humanly possible. He lunged, knocking the man's arm sideways. The shot missed, the bullet tearing into the wall instead of my skull. Keanu didn't stop. In one fluid motion, he wrenched the gun away and slammed the guy to the ground, hard, the cabin filled with the sound of desperate, muffled gasps. Keanu's knee pressed against the man's chest, keeping him pinned. "Who sent you?" The man struggled. Keanu leaned in, voice like steel. "Who sent you?" The guy spat blood. And then, hoarse and weak, he muttered, "Tony says hello." I felt the air leave my lungs. Keanu's expression darkened. "Tell Tony." He grabbed the man's collar, voice dangerously low. That was his last mistake. The end of Tony. Keanu made the call. Within the hour, the police were on their way. Turns out, these guys weren't just hired thugs. Tony had ties to an organized crime syndicate. When Keanu started digging into his background, it put pressure on the wrong people. So Tony made a desperate move, but he made a mistake. He went after Keanu Reeves, and that was a very, very bad idea. By morning, the cops had Tony in custody. His whole operation collapsed overnight. As for me, I was finally free. A new beginning. A week later, I sat in an office in downtown LA, staring at a contract. My first real publishing job. Keanu's friend had followed through. Not because of a favor. Not because of charity, but because I earned it. As I signed my name, I felt something I hadn't in a long time, hope. That afternoon, Keanu met me for coffee. He grinned as I slid the contract across the table. "Told you." I laughed. Yeah. Guess I owe you one." He sipped his drink. "Now, just promise me something." "What?" He met my eyes. "Don't let the world take your kindness away." I swallowed hard, emotion catching in my throat. I nodded. "I won't." Keanu smiled. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I knew this was only the beginning. The worst was over, and the future was mine to write.